Printcomm firm's acquisition proposal for Digitech. Jay Risher worked at Printcomm as the vice president and control manager. Printcomm is a communication firm that provides back-to-back printing services by merging production capabilities to generate finished copies and dispense the printed materials. Risher initiated plans to acquire Digitech company because he discovered that the firm had huge profit potential. He also negotiated to have Buckingham and Green as part of the management team because the two were the driving force behind the excellent performance of Digitech. The two individuals were needed to not only manage the Digitech operations but also facilitate the merging of the two firms. During negotiation, Risher presented two earn-out proposals to hasten the conclusion of the deal. The first earn-out plan promised to endow payments to Buckingham and Green in the next 5 years on the condition that Digitech achieves specified income goals. The second earn-out plan offered contingent compensations over the next 3 years. Risher used a simulation-based value model to estimate the future projected sales growth and profit margins. However, he failed to include the inflation component in his simulation model since inflation has a direct effect on projected sales growth and profit margins. Jay Risher worked at Printcomm as the vice president and control manager. Printcomm is a communication firm that provides back-to-back printing services by merging production capabilities to generate finished copies and dispense the printed materials. Risher had discovered that Digitech was a profitable acquisition project and initiated negotiations that conferred Printcomm 2 weeks of exclusive rights to bargain for the purchase of Digitech. Risher also learned that the exceptional performance of Digitech was attributed to the excellent managerial skills of the two leaders of the company. He thus acquired a contract with these two leaders to stay at Printcomm and manage the Digitech business for a period of 5 years. The negotiation for the acquisition of Digitech focused mainly on establishing a fixed sales price for the firm. A fixed price agreement was definitely the easiest to achieve since it needed only a normal purchase and sale agreement that emphasized the full consideration in form and amount. However, the two parties held divergent views with respect to their perception of a rational valuation for Digitech's business. Risher was also worried that Digitech management would not be motivated to stay on at Digitech if Printcomm agreed to pay a premium price to acquire the company. He believed that Buckingham and Green should be retained as they possessed vital managerial skills and experience needed to integrate the firms and transmit business knowledge between the two firms. Risher presented two different proposals to conclude the deal as soon as possible. He proposed the use of an earn-out and acquisition payment system where a certain percentage of the purchase price of Digitech is paid by Printcomm on the condition that Digitech realizes certain business goals after its closure. The first earn-out plan would endow payments to Buckingham and Green in the next 5 years on the condition that Digitech achieves specified income goals. Risher wanted to include high earn-out targets into the 5-year plan because Printcomm was exposed for an extended period of time. His targets were 1999, $2.5 million, 2000, $3 million, 2001, $3 million, 2002, $3.5 million, and 2003, $3.5 million. Risher set these targets close to Printicomm's estimated profit margins for Digitech. Under this structure, Printicomm would only pay for extra money if the actual performance surpassed the anticipated outcome. Risher also was convinced that the money to be paid at the conclusion of the deal should be set at a low value, $20 million, on the basis of the prospective future value granted to Digitech with a 5-year earn-out period. The second proposal, earn-out plan, only offered contingent compensations over the next 3 years. Risher believed that the earn-out targets needed to be lower under this plan since the anticipated future performance could be estimated with a high level of certainty. Thus, the targets set by Risher under the second proposal were as follows: 1999, $2 million, 2000, $2.5 million, and 2001, $2.50. Digitech was thus offered a chance to earn extra income in the second earn-out structure since the targets set were lower and achievable. The second earn-out plan presented a win-win situation for both firms since Printicomm too would incur less cost to implement. Under the second proposal, Risher proposed to set the fixed price offer at $28 million at a closing A figure that was already under consideration. Both Printicomm and Digitech valued each earnout in a different way on the basis of their respective perception about the future. For instance, Risher opted to employ a simulation model that would utilize estimated distribution for key value determinants. According to him, sales growth and profit margins were the key determinants of future value for Digitech. Consequently, he estimated a 5% growth in sales every year. He also projected that the future sales growth would reach 10%. Risher used the same simulation model to forecast the future profit margins for Digitech. Risher opted to replicate the analysis in order to predict the manner in which Digitech might view his earnout proposal. He used the distribution that Digitech would most likely employ for the key determinants in their analysis. Risher assessed the estimates done by Digitech and concluded that 10% was the minimum projected sales growth by Digitech while 30% was the maximum projected sales growth. He also anticipated the distribution for estimated income earnings to be somewhat tighter, fluctuating between 15% and 25%, with 20% as the most probable margin. Risher must consider the impact of the projected inflation on the estimated profit margins of the two proposals. For example, the total population in the U.S. was expected to hit the 280 million mark in 2003. This growth was to be accompanied by rising income levels and aggregate demand. A growing economy accompanied by an increase in the aggregate demand for printed verts was projected to increase the inflation-adjusted yearly growth rate by 2% in the next 5 years. Also, the stiff competition was expected from electronic media in the U.S., which would further diminish the demand for printed products. Moreover, the printer's profit margins were expected to shrink as a result of the rising cost of paper, which is the principal raw material for Printicomm. I would recommend introducing the inflation component in his simulation model to project future sales growth and profit margins.